Hello, folks, and welcome to Author Adjacent, a podcast about the journey from hobbyist writer to professional author. I'm your host, Michael Vadney. If you're listening to this, you might hesitate to call yourself an author. Even I'm not there yet, but I am author adjacent. I started this podcast as a fellow journeyman on the path from writer to author in the hopes that what I learn along the way will help you fulfill your own dreams. While this podcast has been branching out with author interviews lately, I wanted to get back to what originally made this show famous. Okay, maybe we're not famous just yet, but after running a survey on X, it's clear that you want a mix of content. And as I just mentioned, I started this podcast with the goal of helping you. So moving forward, I'll be blending author interviews with more of these informative, deep dive episodes to give you the best of both worlds. But first, a word from our partner. Moonlit Getaway is a multi-genre literary journal set to begin publication on September 23rd, 2024. If you missed their grand opening contest, fret not, for they are now open to general submissions in the categories of visual art, flash fiction, and poetry. Hurry over to Moonlit Getaway for details. I'll have a link in the description for anyone who is interested, but now back to the show. In today's episode, we're diving into the world of storytelling through the lens of three major age group genres: young adult, new adult, and adult fiction. We'll explore what sets these three genres apart, from the unique themes they offer to the way they resonate with readers at different life stages. Whether you're a fan of coming-of-age tales, navigating the messy middle of early adulthood, or facing the complex moral dilemmas of later life, this episode will break down the core elements that make each genre distinct and why they matter in the broader literary landscape. Before we begin, it's important to note that genres, especially these age-based categories, are most often used as marketing tools by the literary industry. What we discuss today is a commentary on trends and the history of these genres rather than strict definitions, as stories often blur the lines between them. So, what exactly is YA? Well, young adult fiction is literature written, published, and marketed to readers roughly between the ages of 13 and 18. It's a genre that's really exploded in recent years, but has been around for a long time. To really understand the origins of young adult fiction, we have to travel back to the late 1960s, a decade of immense social change and turbulence. It was in 1967 specifically that two key novels helped define what would eventually become the YA genre as we know it today: The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton and The Contender by Robert Libsite. Robert, I'm sorry if I mispronounce your last name. There's a lot of names in this episode that I might struggle with, so please, people, forgive me. Before these groundbreaking books, stories were written for teens were limited in scope. Most of them were set in small-town, white America and focused on fairly superficial issues. Think senior proms and finding a date, rather than real, raw problems that many young people were facing at the time. Hinton and Libsite and others like them recognized that teenagers wanted to read about characters who looked like them, talked like them, and dealt with relatable struggles. But why did YA fiction emerge when it did? Well, you can't have young adult fiction without the concept of young adults, and the idea of teenagers as a distinct social group only really came into existence in the late 1930s and 1940s. It was then that American youth culture started to develop, with the term teenager becoming part of the everyday language. As young culture evolved, so did the literature meant to reflect their lives and experiences. These early YA novels were a response to this culture shift. They gave voice to the realities of adolescence in a way that hadn't been done before, addressing complex themes like identity, class struggle, and the pressures of growing up. This was the beginning of a genre that would continue to evolve alongside the ever-changing experience of being a teenager. But what sets it apart from the other age categories? The key feature of a YA is the adolescent protagonist. These stories place teens at the heart of the narrative, facing challenges, exploring relationships, and navigating the complexities of life during these formative years. The themes often focus on universal struggles of youth: identity, independence, love, and self-discovery. For what makes YA so compelling is that it can span across all genres, from fantasy and sci-fi to contemporary drama. YA stories are often referred to as coming-of-age novels, and they cover a wide variety of writing styles, from rich literary prose to fast-paced, straightforward storytelling. It's due to this diversity of topic and style that YA has grown to appeal to readers of all ages beyond its intended market. A central theme in young adult fiction is the journey of self-discovery. The teenage years are marked by significant change, and YA protagonists often wrestle with the questions of identity, self-acceptance, and their role in the world. These stories encourage readers to embrace their individuality and navigate the complexities of growing up. But these questions of who am I, where do I belong, have universal appeal. People are not static, and their place in life is always changing. Whether you're becoming a parent, moving to a new city, or just growing up, we never stop questioning our place in the world, which is why YA often appeals to people of all ages. This universal resonance is part of what makes young adult fiction so compelling, even for older readers. YA stories tap into the raw emotional experience of growing up, experiences that, while intensified during the teenage years, continue to surface throughout our lives. The themes of self-discovery, resilience, and forming connections are not confined to adolescence. Adults often find comfort and insight in revisiting these moments, seeing parallels between the struggles of fictional young characters and their own ongoing personal growth. In this way, YA fiction transcends its intended audience, offering meaningful reflection for readers of all ages. All right, I'll stop harping on the universal appeal of YA and hit you with 3 examples in case you're still unsure what constitutes as a young adult fiction. First is The Hunger Games by Susan Collins. Set in a dystopian future, this novel takes place in a totalitarian nation of Pan Am, where the government holds on an annual event called the Hunger Games. In this brutal competition, 2 children from each district are forced to fight to the death in a televised spectacle. When Katniss Everdeen volunteers to take her younger sister's place, she sets in motion events that will change the games forever. Next is Yoke by Mary H.K. Cho. Estranged sisters and Korean immigrants, Jun and Jane, are forced back into each other's lives when Jun is diagnosed with cancer. While Jane steps in to support her sister, she struggles to confront her own illness, one that threatens to harm her just as much. And my last example is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This novel follows a soldier, Alina Starkov, who discovers unexpected magical abilities while navigating the monster-filled Shadowfold. Her country's elite believe she holds the key to destroying the Fold and pin their hopes on her newfound powers. Though YA can be a mix of any genre, it's most common to find it blended with contemporary fiction, fantasy, sci-fi, historical fiction, and romance. If you are considering writing some YA, it's important to note that due to the target age range, these novels tend to be shorter, averaging 40 to 80,000 words, compared to the average novel length of 70 to 120,000 words of other fiction. In conclusion, young adult fiction captures the transformative years of adolescence, tackling themes of identity, growth, and belonging in ways that resonates with readers of all ages. From dystopian worlds to heartfelt contemporary tales, YA explores the universal experience of coming of age. But what happens when the challenges of youth give way to the complexities of early adulthood? That's where new adult fiction steps in, bridging the gap between teen years and the world of adult responsibilities. In the next segment, we'll dive into this rise of new adult fiction and how it carved its own space in the literary world. What is new adult fiction? Well, it's a category of books aimed at readers between the ages of 18 and 25. Think of it as the bridge between young adult fiction that we talked about before and adult fiction, which we will be getting to soon. New adult, or NA fiction, often explores the unique challenges of this in-between stage of life. How did this genre come to be? Well, the term new adult was first coined by St. Martin's Press, a major publisher in New York, and is considered to be a very new category in the ancient and slow-moving literary world. Back in 2009, they were on the lookout for manuscripts that fit somewhere between young adult and adult fiction. They saw the potential for stories that weren't quite teenage dramas, but weren't entirely adult either. Something for those 20-somethings who were outgrowing high school narratives, but weren't quite ready for middle-aged protagonists. At first, it wasn't a huge hit with major publishers, as they cited various concerns for their hesitance. Some agents and publishing houses dismissed it as a marketing gimmick, while others argued there wasn't enough readership to justify publishing such material. So many indie authors took matters into their own hands. In the early 2010s, self-publishing became the major avenue for new adult fiction. Writers started putting out their own books for the 20-somethings and building a readership. Eventually, traditional publishers caught on and the category started gaining recognition in bookstores and among booksellers. This is an off-topic thing, but we are actually seeing a similar phenomenon with the lit RPG genre, which has been an indie and self-publishing staple that is starting to be picked up by larger publishing houses. But back to the topic at hand. New adult explores themes of big transitions, moving out of your childhood home for the first time, exploring your sexual identity, learning how to care for your own health, starting college or a job, and figuring out relationships, whether they be familial, platonic, or romantic. Essentially, new adult fiction covers a freshly minted adult's firsts and the big life changes that come with adulthood, but in a way that feels more relatable to younger readers. New adult fiction all provides a space to explore the emotional complexities that come with these transitions. It delves into the struggles of newfound independence, the pressures of making life-altering decisions, and the raw emotions tied to love, heartbreak, and personal growth. These stories often resonate because they reflect the uncertainty, the excitement, and the fear accompanied with stepping into adulthood. For readers in this age range, new adult fiction captures both the freedom and the weight of responsibility that adulthood brings, making it a genre that bridges the gap between youthful exploration and mature self-discovery. I think you get the point, but in case you don't, here are 3 examples of new adult fiction. First, A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This high fantasy adventure follows 19-year-old Feyre, who is thrust into the enchanted world of Fae after being taken from her home. As she learns to navigate this strange magical realm, she must also come to terms with her growing connection to her captor. Next is Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. In this tale, Evie Sage takes an unexpected job offer from a notorious villain to support her struggling family. But as unexpected attractions develop and hidden betrayals surface, things quickly become more complicated than she ever imagined. And last, Slammed by Colleen Hoover. After the sudden death of her father, 18-year-old Lakin becomes the pillar of her family, though she's struggling inside. She forms a deep emotional connection with her new neighbor Will, but a shocking revelation after their first date threatens to tear them apart. Now they must navigate the intense emotions pulling them together while facing the secrets that keep them apart. Like YA, new adult fiction can blend with any genre or subgenre, but tends to be paired with science fiction, urban fiction, horror, paranormal, dystopia, and a strong connection with romance. This list is not exhaustive, and you can find NA blended with any genre if you look hard enough. Today, new adult fiction is a thriving genre, filled with stories that resonate with readers going through some of the most formative years of their lives. All right, let's wrap up this by exploring adult fiction, which is the broadest category of fiction, targeting readers typically over the age of 26. This is the space for novels that address mature themes and complex narratives, often delving into the more sophisticated emotional and psychological territory than what you find in YA or NA. Adult fiction spans every imaginable genre: romance, thriller, mystery, literary fiction, science fiction, and more, each exploring the vast landscape of human experience. Historically, adult fiction has been the backbone of the literary world. For centuries, novels were written almost exclusively for adults, as the concept of literature specifically tailored to younger audiences didn't emerge until the mid-20th century. Literary classics like Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby have long defined what adult fiction can be: stories that push boundaries, challenge norms, and reflect the social and cultural complexities of their time. When it comes to themes, adult fiction often dives deeper into nuanced emotional journeys and more mature dilemmas. You'll find explorations of identity and self-discovery much like YA and NA, but framed within the context of adults' responsibilities and moral ambiguities. Themes like love and loss, ambition and failure, family dynamics, ethical questions, and existential dilemmas all regularly feature. Where YA might focus on finding oneself, adult fiction often asks, how do we deal with the self we have found? The narratives may explore the gray areas of life, where decisions are rarely black and white, and the consequences are real and far-reaching. In adult fiction, these themes are often interwoven with complex interpersonal relationships and the burdens of past choices. Characters grapple with the weight of regret, the consequences of missed opportunity, or the price of ambition. The exploration of love may shift from the idealistic to the pragmatic, confronting the imperfections and compromises that long-term relationships demand. Similarly, the journey of self-discovery may take on a more somber tone as characters face the disillusionment that comes with unmet expectations or the stark reality of their own limitations. In these narratives, success is not guaranteed. Moral clarity is often elusive, forcing characters to navigate a world where personal fulfillment might come at the cost of others, or even themselves. Just as with the previous two age-based genres, I have 3 examples to help cement what I'm talking about here. First, Where the Crawdads Sing, by Delia Owens. Kaya Clark, a young girl who grows up isolated in the North Carolina marshes after being abandoned by her family. Known as the Marsh Girl, she learns to survive on her own while a murder investigation involving a local man casts suspicion on her. Second, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, by Stig Larsson. Harriet Vanger, a member of one of Sweden's wealthiest families, vanished over 40 years ago, and her uncle is still determined to uncover the truth. He enlists the journalist Mikael Blomqvist, who, with the help of hacker Lisbeth Salander, begin investigation into the decade-old mystery. Together, they uncover the dark web of corruption and unimaginable evil. And lastly, The Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown. Harvard symbologist Robert Langdon is called to the Louvre after his curator is murdered, leaving behind a mysterious cipher. Teaming up with cryptologist Sophie Neveu, Langdon uncovers clues hidden in Da Vinci's works, leading to a secret involving the Priory of Sion, an ancient society. As they race across Europe, they must solve the puzzle before powerful enemies can bury the world-altering truth forever. In the end, adult fiction offers a window into the full spectrum of human experience, providing readers with stories that resonate across the arc of a lifetime, reflecting the complexity, beauty, and struggle of being fully grown. All right, folks, that is going to wrap it up for this episode of Author Adjacent. Thank you for hanging out with me today as I presented the origins and properties of young adult, new adult, and adult fiction. Once again, I'm your host, Michael Vadney. If any of this was helpful or even just gave you a good chuckle, consider supporting the show by leaving a review on your podcast platform of choice or telling a friend about the show. For more Author Adjacent, you can follow me on X at Author Adjacent or shoot me an email at authoradjacent@gmail.com with your burning questions, comments, or topic ideas. New episodes drop every other week, so stay tuned. Now remember, the journey from writer to author might be long, but until then, let's be author adjacent together.